I curse everything that you have given. I curse the day on which I was born. I curse the day on which I shall die. I curse the whole of my life. I fling everything back at your cruel face. Senseless fate, be accursed, be forever accursed. This quote from the life of man is one of the ways that people react to suffering. In our lives, we are taught by parents or teachers not to curse life, but to rejoice at the gift of existence and be forever grateful for it. But this is a very perfectionistic and idealistic way of looking at life. It completely ignores the existence of suffering. Suffering, which can make us feel like fate or God doesn't care about us at all, or even that the world we live in is inherently evil and life is not a gift but a horrible curse. In 5th century BCE, the Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama, exclaimed what's called the Fourfold Noble Truth, which is thought to be the wisest teaching of Buddhism in history. The first of the truths is that life is suffering. Did not every one of us come to this world screaming and in a way protesting? To come out into cold and prohibitive surroundings after a soft, warm, motherly womb was surely a painful incident to say the least. Not only birth is painful, but the growth of our bodies, teething, puberty, illness, the list goes on. Life does not only come with physical pain, but also with psychological pain caused by abuse, trauma, and so forth. The growth of society also comes with awful wars and cataclysms. What makes it even worse is the awareness that all of it is absolutely inevitable. Human life is by many great minds described as a struggle between two opposing forces, the flesh and the spirit. This conflict is the very core of human existence. We are the only beings that have both the animalistic and the spiritual natures inside of us. Those natures fundamentally oppose each other. In every human, at all times, there is a conflict between the spirit and the flesh. This fundamental conflict is thought to be the reason for human suffering, and it indicates that we are literally made to suffer. However, this suffering doesn't only exist to torture us. It is the only way that any being can make progress in anything, actualize itself, be the master of oneself, and quite frankly, this is the only way that life as we know it makes any sense. If there was no pain, then no matter what we did, we would feel well. If that were the case, then there would be no reason to do anything, because no matter what you do, you will still feel the same. Humanity would have no reason to make inventions, explore the world, form friendships, or even eat or drink. We would turn into beings who have nothing to work towards, nothing to do, because there is nothing to fix or improve. In that state, all progress would be impossible. For the more you suffer, the deeper grows your character, and with the deepening of your character, you read the more penetratingly into the secrets of life. When heaven wants to perfect a great man, it tries him in every possible way, until he comes out triumphantly from all his painful experiences. Suffering is a needed element of reality in order for there to be room to grow and progress. It is also a powerful motivator and a wise teacher, but the knowledge that pain is the key to self-actualization simply isn't enough to justify the day-to-day struggle we experience. We humans are wired in a way that makes us avoid pain at all cost. The nature of our brains makes us choose not to dive deep into the secrets of existence, simply because it is not a pleasant feeling to do so. In Buddhism, the ego is what makes us avoid pain, and the goal of the Buddhist philosophy is to overcome the ego, bravely dive into the sea of suffering, and through that become a more profound human being. We are too ego-centered. The ego shell in which we live is the hardest thing to outgrow. We seem to carry it all the time, from childhood up to the time we finally pass away. If the key to becoming a better person is suffering, we need a way, a mindset, a system that will help us conquer the struggle. According to Zen Buddhism, the breaking and overcoming of the aforementioned ego shell, or the animalistic part of human nature, is the key to unlocking the secrets of reality. The first and most important teaching of Zen Buddhism is that suffering is to be grasped by a faculty higher than the intellect. The intellect tells us that it is generally better not to suffer than to suffer, but it also tells us that without suffering, no progress is possible. Zen masters see the intellect as full of such contradictions, and thus proclaim it not to be a sufficient means of attaining higher states of consciousness. The intellect asks all those questions about the meaning of life, but it is unable to answer any of them, for the intellect has a peculiarly disquieting quality in it. Though it raises questions enough to disturb the serenity of the mind, it is too frequently unable to give satisfactory answers to them. If it were able to bring a new order into the disturbance and settle it once for all, there would have been no need for philosophy after it had been first systematized by a great thinker, by an Aristotle or by a Hegel. Consequently, Zen focuses not on philosophical discussion, but on the fact of life itself. It teaches to concentrate on the hands-on, in-the-moment experience of every second of our lives, as opposed to analyzing it intellectually. If one has the mindset of simply experiencing life as it is, and not trying to understand it with logic, one realizes that there is in fact no struggle between the flesh and the spirit. One realizes that it is simply a fiction designed by our human minds. When one learns to be above what one's thoughts say, one ceases to seek answers to questions about the meaning or purpose of life, and realizes that no such answers are needed to live a happy life. When we are hungry, we eat. When we are sleepy, we lay ourselves down. And where does the infinite or the finite come in here? Are we not complete in ourselves, and each in himself? Life, as it is lived, suffices. It is only when the disquieting intellect steps in and tries to murder it that we stop to live and imagine ourselves to be lacking in something. Life flows outside of the river of the intellect or imagination. That is why Zen can never be understood. The whole point of that philosophy is to step out of the realm of understanding and into the realm of individual experience. Zen doesn't abhor the intellect. It simply states that it is not the correct way of looking for the meaning of life. Intellect and logic can be very useful when one wants to build a house or a machine, but it should not be taken as the final fact and ultimate nature of existence. Suffering is to be seen as a necessary and incredibly important part of life, but Zen proclaims that it is not to be thought of as suffering. It is not to be thought of as a bad thing nor a good thing. It is simply to be experienced and accepted. Both its merits and demerits are to be acknowledged without further intellectual discourse. A monk named Yun Men was being taught by a master named Mu Chou. During one of the lessons, the master hastily closed a gate before Yun Men, which resulted in the apprentice losing a leg. In the moment that the gate closed in on his leg, he experienced enlightenment. This seemingly pointless, excruciating incident granted him what he had worked towards for decades. The intellect screams out, but why did he have to lose his leg to achieve it? Couldn't he have just had enlightenment without all the trouble? Maybe he could, but that was not the case. Zen is the most irrational, inconceivable thing in the world, and so is suffering and life as a whole. Oftentimes we hear the most absurd and unfair things that happen to people, or worse, we experience them ourselves. We think, why did that have to happen? Why me? Why them? All of those are questions made up by the human brain. While it makes logical sense to ask them, they are not in any way necessary to life itself. These kind of thoughts don't make life easier, but they make it more difficult to deal with. The intellect's goal is to understand life, while the goal of Zen is to live it. Mu Chou, who lived in the latter half of the 9th century, was once asked, "We have to dress and eat every day, and how can we escape from all that?" The master replied, "We dress, we eat." "I do not understand you," said the questioner. "If you don't understand, put on your dress and eat your food." In this story, the master points out that intellectual discourse is not necessary to perform daily tasks. No matter if you understand life, no matter if you have your questions answered, at the end of the day, if you're hungry, you have to eat, and if you're tired, you have to sleep. We are all finite. We cannot live out of time and space. Inasmuch as we are earth-created, there is no way to grasp the infinite. How can we deliver ourselves from the limitations of existence? Salvation must be sought in the finite itself. There is nothing infinite apart from finite things. If you seek something transcendental, that will cut you off from this world of relativity, which is the same thing as the annihilation of yourself. You do not want salvation at the cost of your own existence. If so, drink and eat, and find your way of freedom in this drinking and eating. It is a clear fact that life is suffering. There is no way for us to live without it. The intellect begs for an explanation for all the pain we experience. The human brain tells us that it is all unnecessary. It rebels against the nature of reality. But at the end of the day, no matter how illogical existence is sometimes, no matter how much we riot against it, this rioting can never change reality. No questions need to be asked. No questions need to be answered. In a sense, life itself is the answer to all of our questions. And as we discussed before, life is suffering. Therefore, all the suffering we go through can be taken as the meaning of our existence.